Firstly, I want to thank the Resources Regulator for the opportunity to present. Being such a sensitive topic, I guess it's a white elephant in the room that we all know is there, and hopefully some real life experience from me as an operator and what I endured, and the research that's been completed, we can start to fill in some gaps and move our way forward. So as mentioned, I've been around a little bit. I've worked with a lot of the major mining houses through the Hunter Valley, New South Wales, and also contractors in Queensland. So I've got competencies of open cut examiner in both states. A few qualifications there, and actually one of the subjects I chose to study in my final year at mining engineering was technology management, which I'm sure you'll agree the flavour of this seminar is focused quite heavily on technology in our industry. So early in my career, when I was a equipment operator in open cut coal production teams, I spent many years working on shift rosters, a variety of equipment which included haul trucks, water cuts, graders, dozers, both rubber tired and tracked, and production excavators. Has anyone here driven a dump truck on night shift for 12 hours? Yep. It's pretty taxing, I'll say that. So I was quite lucky. So when I used to sleep through the day, I consistently used to get 7 to 8 hours sleep a day when I was rostered on for night shift. But that didn't guarantee me a good night at work. And when I presented these findings to Dr. Dave Meredith from Coal Services, he explained that he'd never ever had it portrayed doing like that. So to me, that was pleasing to see a gap that we've already started to fill of what our industry experts of health monitoring are starting to learn as well. Without a question of a doubt, the most I ever felt fatigue when I was operating equipment in my career as an operator was in a haul truck, given the monotony and the arduous tasks and being repetitive. And for a lot of the underground folk in the room that I haven't met, I'll employ you to try and liken it to that out-by role or the LHD, where it's very repetitive and you're up and back all the time. So although this focuses on open cut environments, it could be the start of how we can start to use the same principles in underground as well. Early 2021, I took some time off work and I wanted to finish some studies. Unfortunately, at that time, COVID impacted and it was via distance learning. So I wanted to select a topic I was both passionate about but also interested in. And fatigue jumped straight out at me. Haul truck operator fatigue specifically, because it's tasks, it's boring task. And the fact that we haven't got a solid answer to eliminate it or further minimise it. And it is present at most operations that run 24/7 in our industry. So I was curious to learn more and felt that my experiences and insight into this subject could potentially add some benefit to the industry by sharing these and the research findings. There's just simply no way for us to completely eliminate fatigue from our industry. We need to produce, and it's our job as managers to manage risk. Yet the research aimed to assess the work environments to determine if there was any areas that have been overlooked through the process that we can look at further controls. So as mentioned in a number of presentations earlier, vehicle interactions, which is probably our biggest risk for most mine sites, that was a key driver in the decision for fatigue management, which comes out of, affects your vehicle interactions and impairment of our operators. I have an ongoing curiosity to understand more and why how fatigue does affect us, and the steps that we can learn to prevent fatigue through modifying our work environment. So using cognitive ergonomics to mitigate the impacts. Another flavour of our seminar presentations have been mental health. Mental health walks hand in hand with fatigue, and our already issue of fatigue in our industry is only now exacerbated further by the mental health crisis that we're currently in. I just want to note also that this presentation, when I put it together, it's not designed to judge any current practices of any company or site. The content within is really to give an insight in how we can interpret my life experiences and promote an innovative thinking and continuous improvement as part of that risk management, so we can minimise the risks associated with fatigue. So ensuring that it'd carry weight in the industry, I wanted to make sure we adopted a consultative approach and value add. And this involved discussing with a number of content experts of their field in our industry. So, with the permission of these people to reference their names in this presentation, I presented face-to-face with Dr. Trent Watson. A number of you would know Trent from assisting our sites with our fatigue management. He's the Director of Ethos Health. Dr. David Meredith from Cole Health Services at Singleton. Sat down with David and the Innovation and Partnering team. Professor Maureen Hassel from UQ, and Maureen's done a lot with companies around human factors, and she's also the Director of Industry Safety and Health of University of Queensland. And I was fortunate enough to be introduced to a very reputable neurologist, Dr. Stan Rodsky, and I invited him to assess the research findings, and from there we remain in frequent contact. And when I met Stan, I was told that Stan actually coached Craig Bellamy how to teach the Storm how to win between 2005 and 2010. So his way of training the brain and teaching people how to use the brain as a tool, we found some very common ground with the mining industry, and we've started some deep discussions about that. So fatigue management, I think the mining industry, you'll all agree, we're the leaders in I guess, the way we approach it and how we lead in managing the risks associated with fatigue. We look at our NERTNI well with our competent people. So your fitness for work systems. Another one I would like to touch on is with Coal Services during the consultation, they were very forthcoming about the amber category with health monitoring now. So with BMI, body mass indexes exceeding 39, we go into an ongoing medical review. There's correlations with sleep apnea and therefore weight, and you look at Australia's rising obesity in the population too. So we go to our safe work practices, so the fatigue management rostering, etc. But when I get to the controlled work environment, are we really satisfied it's controlled? And I make reference to the regulation about maintenance of control measures, and then clause 38 where we have to review and revise as necessary. So I think with this added, I guess, risk of the increase in mental health, it's certainly one we should consider. So in humans, circadian rhythmicity influences numerous cognitive processes, and you'll notice I've referenced quite a bit of material out of here. The research extended 4 months. There were a number of papers and documents that we went through. Executive functions and memory. So understanding that workers who engage in shift work where most surroundings are dark and lack colour could return to circadian rhythm's default function, which is basically to relax the body in preparation to rest. Diet, exercise, safe systems of work, and information and training and awareness all contribute to mitigating those risks. Where we've got 60 haul truck operators on shift or 80 or whatever it may be, we just simply can't use task rotation anymore, given the skill shortage and labour shortages, to help manage fatigue as well. These are multiple controls we can adopt to minimise the effects, but ultimately what we're trying to do is change the body's biological and physiological characteristics by completing tasks or working when the body is programmed to rest. Circadian rhythm dysfunctions are also known in people with depression and other mental illnesses such as mania, and if you look at the reference, like that's taken from 1988. This has been around for some time. So it's only in the last few years we've really started to talk about mental health and illness in our industry, and the link to fatigue management is great. The research information was broken down into a number of areas. So human brain components and their functions. I'm certainly not an expert in the field, nor I claim to be, but we had to learn more on how and why. Ergonomic designs, operator cabins. So part of this research includes involving OEMs. I'm in current discussions at the moment with trying to shed some light on this side from the research, so they can get involved with it and complete their 50%. So there's some opportunity there. Climate, air quality and temperatures, workplace lighting, mining engineering and design, and finally there were some operator surveys. So at the time of the research, COVID restricted access to a lot of sites. We had them locked down. It was as necessary or essential workers only. So the surveys that were launched via SurveyMonkey platform to known operators in the industry who were not identified. So if we look at the primary components of the brain when we relate to fatigue, this red section, the basal ganglia, and the anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC, and the hypothalamus. So they're the key functions of our brain that interface between cognition, emotion, and motor skills. So the basal ganglia are at the base of the brain and associated with a variety of functions including motor activity and motivation, and diseases affecting the basal ganglia are often associated with fatigue, which coordinates the brain's responses to things in your environment. The hypothalamus is an integral part of the brain, which in combination with the pituitary gland controls many hormones throughout the body, and in some cases regulates the dosage levels secreted, for example, enabling breastfeeding females to produce milk after childbirth. So it's a pretty impressive component of our body, the brain, and its ability to make changes. The hypothalamus also controls body temperature, hunger, thirst, fatigue, sleep, and circadian and cycles. As part of the research, a recent study determined that the most profound neurological changes occur in the insula, also known as the insular cortex or the island array, and its regulation of homeostasis, motor control and cognitive functioning amongst other duties. So there's that, and that was in 2020, so that they're still learning more about fatigue in the brain and what are the major components and where it's affected most. Ergonomic designs is our next section when we talk about primarily operator cabins. So there are significant benefits to any business by adopting simple ergonomic design principles. Principles can improve worker engagement, including reduce fatigue associated with boredom at work, reduce costs and increase productivity, and promotes a more positive and safety culture in the workplace. For any changes to our ergonomics designs within our cabs or additions, we're required to undertake rigorous change management, which completes analysis, risk analysis, include our workers through consultation, but also include OEMs if we're going to alter cabins of trucks. Are we eliminating or minimising an identified hazard whilst introducing an unforeseen hazard? Sometimes unintentionally, that can be the case. Understand the potential impacts that may affect the operator as a result of the change prior to the project implementation. Given some applications within the workplaces are complex and the effects known as new technologies evolve, we're not experts in what we do, as whether it's business improvement or project managers or mining superintendents. Cognitive ergonomics primarily focuses on two key items, being the risk to health and safety and the human-computer interaction. In some cases, we may need to engage cognitive systems engineers or occupational physicians prior to implementation to determine what impacts these changes may introduce. And more importantly, are we introducing a risk to health and safety of our workers? This is from a weekly incident summary from last year, where we talk about operator distraction events. And if you've been in a cabin of a truck or any equipment lately, with all the monitoring equipment, they're starting to get quite busy in the cabins. So I guess it's a good reminder of the more stuff we put in these things, the more distraction and the effects we can have on cognitive enhancement. So boredom in the workplace is found to affect workers in several ways. Lack of brain stimulation that enhances fatigue symptoms, distraction events by focusing on things or the tasks at hand, horseplay that may include risk-taking behaviours, and they're the big ones, just to try and get some stimulation from their work. So I feel the time is here to develop some engineering solutions to offer haul truck operators that more stimulating experience. Climate, air quality and temperatures. A study completed in 2018 climate conditions and work-related fatigue amongst professional drivers. Now, these were road interstate drivers. This research was completed. It identified that ambient temperatures greater than 24.7 degrees in cabins and increased air fan speeds had an increase in drivers feeling tired and difficulty making decisions. The correlations were also discovered from the associated wind speed or airflow resulted in heavy eyelid feeling, eye strain and frequent blinking. So ultimately, when we blink more, the brain interprets the trigger as a sign of preparing the body for rest with eye strain. This is just a screenshot of the survey that was completed through SurveyMonkey, and as you can see, there was 57% of participants found that they mostly recognise the effects of fatigue in the cooler months of the year, which will also correlate to something in the next couple of slides. Controlled climatic temperatures that were optimum or ideal were found to be between 20 degrees and 24.7 degrees, and that was found to stabilise a driver's performance for cognitive tasks during longer periods of time. So very similar to, I guess, interstate truck drivers when we're in vehicles for up to 10.5 hours of a shift, of a 12-hour shift. Certainly relevant research. Spontaneous combustion, which I know a number of sites have enjoyed in the past few years, leads to the emission of toxic and explosive gases emitted by the process of that self-heating of coal or exothermic oxidisation. Some of the gases given off as a result, which are poisonous, can affect the operator's senses and cognition if not identified or managed correctly. To be honest, I only stumbled on this by an incident that I had to investigate at one of the sites in 2018 where we had an excavator digging hot material and the operator claimed that he felt tired, and other operators said when they worked in that area they felt tired, so we had to introduce other controls. Poisonous gases associated with SponCom, such as hydrogen sulphide, H2S, sulphur dioxide and carbon monoxide. A lot of sites and jobs use the carbon filters to eliminate the ingress of gases, but also rotation of operators is another way we reduce that exposure of their risk to health and safety. This was probably an accidental find, this one, seasonal affective disorder as it's known, and I hadn't heard of it. But the Mayo Clinic actually have got a paper on this, and it's, as we change into seasons, the body has a different characteristic. And where symptoms appear during late autumn and early winter, and then they go away in the sunnier days of spring and summer. Symptoms may start out mild and become more severe as the season progresses. So symptoms of SAD include feeling depressed most of the day, losing interest in activities, having low energy, having problems with sleeping, experiencing changes in your appetite and weight, feeling sluggish or agitated, and having difficulty concentrating. So this appears now more prevalent after the pandemic with an increase of depression and mental health issues, which directly results in fatigue. Workplace lighting. For those who haven't been at an open cut operation at night, this photo was taken quite a few years ago, and that's a lighting plant illuminating a dump face, and those two white lights on the right there, the clearance lights of a haul truck about to enter the dump or entering the dump. So for the haul truck operator, out of all of our process, they spend most of their time in the dark other than a set of headlights. So light creates more than just visual effects like image, shape, intensity, perception or contrast. It also has biological and physiological effects that can impact the health and well-being of humans. When light biologically impacts us, it can improve or disrupt our sleep, cognition, overall well-being. It can improve our mood, stabilise our circadian rhythms, which in turn help us get a better night's sleep. Psychologically, light can decrease depression scores and even increase cognitive performance such as reaction time and activation. I just put this little exercise up just to break it down. So, you know, if we start the shift at 6:30 at night in an open cut mine in the cooler months, so no daylight saving, and then we look at some times in operating hours and minutes. We look at a haul cycle. I've just put some numbers down, 17.8 minutes for the whole cycle. And then we assume 1.5 minutes at the dump to discharge a load, where there's a lighting plant, 3.5 minutes at the load unit to queue and get loaded, you're looking at 80% of that time is in haul roads in darkness, other than delineators and headlights. So when we talk about light and how the brain reacts to it, basically science has made the night sky at night black for that reason to sleep, and the colour blue suppresses melatonin, as the research found, so hence why the sky is blue. So it's been some interesting finds with the research. Mining engineering and design. So there are some opportunities to potentially further educate our engineering departments and younger engineers especially about the cause and effects of fatigue, leading to operator fatigue, I should say. Common locations, environmental conditions, the time of the day when fatigue is likely to occur. Can we influence the outcome? Reducing fatigue events through smarter design and engineering of haul routes, including ramp systems. I know David did a lot of referencing regarding the road safety standards, and in rural roads are especially where the high number of fatalities are, have more stringent requirements. Can we influence the outcome of reducing fatigue events through smarter and ramp systems? Sorry, I read that bit. This also includes providing research to the OEMs for consideration to improve cabin environments as well. So that, as I said, that's one of our next steps. It's a fact as a haul truck operator, and those who put their hand up, you'll know that, and also attest that those longer ramp gradients that we haul uploaded and the longer haul routes expose our operators to an increased risk of operator fatigue events. If we look by changing the constants, such as gradients, straight sections of roads, we have an opportunity to potentially minimise the risks of fatigue through alternative engineering solutions. As a juggling act, we've also got to consider the component life, component wear, tyre life, hours. There's quite a bit in it, but I thought it's certainly one that we could start to air some laundry with and have some discussions about. Just some food for thought. For our operations that are environmentally sensitive in areas that are adjacent to townships, we often build in our mine plan backups or contingencies should we get restricted by those events, such as short wet weather dump options, lower dig areas when we have noise inversions, or send our sound attenuated equipment to those areas affected. So we're quite reactive when we have environmental sensitivity issues to ensure compliance. So why can't we do it with health and safety? Consider more robust engineering controls to accommodate the volume of new workers to our industry from both diverse and cultural backgrounds. So I'm sure you'll all agree we're starting to try and secure people to our industry from further afield, different walks of life, and we've got to consider that in who we're putting in the workplace. Also, that topic that's been echoed across the last 2 days is that rise in mental health and mental illness in our industry. This is probably my analogy of driving a haul truck back in the day in a simple term, is when we put a baby to sleep, we find a dark room, we rock it gently, and just with a nice hum or a gentle song, we put it to sleep. Well, my belief is that's as close as you'll get as an adult to replicating that in a haul truck. Like when you lower the ground speeds between 8 to 12 kilometres an hour, you fully loaded up a ramp. So in some ramps may extend 800 metres, 800 metres. It's pretty tough at that time of the day. And as I said, you can get your 7 or 8 hours sleep, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be okay all shift. To support the research, several operator surveys were completed with specific and deliberate questions to identify areas of occurrence. So a lot of questions were considered, which included all environmental conditions and temperatures, so seasons, cooler months, hotter months, warmer months, key locations in the haul cycle, ramps, loaded, empty, mechanical versus electric drive trucks, where and when operators felt fatigued the most, which also included on their way home from work. So I know there was a big presentation done by Trent Watson on journey management as well. So that duration of work where we've got our haul truck operators, getting them home as well as part of that. Just a screenshot from the SurveyMonkey results. 75% of operators experienced fatigue when loaded up a ramp, and 25% when the truck was empty. So that was a significant score. And this one was, I feel the effects mostly in the pit, hauling up ramps loaded. All right, so the conclusion of the research, I have tried to skip through it to get us all out of here. So although the pandemic restricted the research at its initial stages in 2021, there's been some valuable learnings and findings from the research. I believe there remains so much more to cross-examine using data from the site's fatigue monitoring systems and common locations within our open-cut mining environments to further support the research. Ongoing collaboration in the industry, I think that's the key, incorporating our content experts and OEMs, and hope to seek more effective controls to mitigate fatigue. Although we need new technologies in our industries with other methods to effectively manage our risk, we shouldn't rely on them singularly. By modifying our work environments for all haul truck operators with the goal of making the task more appealing, which in turn increases stimulation and operator engagement, ultimately enhancing that cognitive vigilance. Finally, consideration of the increasing issues in our industry regarding mental health of workers and the associated high risk of fatigue and the effects from those workers. Thank you.